Hi, everybody. I'm Ronnie,
Hello, and I'm Jenny, and
and
we are.
we are the Heart and Soul Sisters.
You got it.
Yes. So we are coming to you today in season 2 when we've been talking about people that we love, right? Books we've read or people we've encountered in person at workshops and so on, just to share what we've picked up from them, not, in any kind of academic way, but just sort of sharing what they've meant to us and how we've applied what we've learned from them in our own lives on our own paths. Today we're taking a break from that because it's been a big week for you, Jenny. And as we got together this morning to say, okay, we had this list of people we're going to talk about, and we were talking about it, and all of a sudden it just seemed like that wasn't the right thing to do today. It was more important to kind of
Yeah.
check in with what's going on. So I'm going to throw it to you and let you share with how your week's been.
Yeah, so it's been a difficult week. I'll start off with the big thing for me this week has been one of our three we had four horses when we moved up here 12 years ago. And my beloved Topaz got colic sometime in the early fall about 6 years ago. They've been on the same pasture. And of course we did everything we could and couldn't get a vet to come out. It's very rural up here, very remote. And vet some vets, a few do farm calls, but they don't do emergency, come help with a horse with colic or to put them down, because you get to
Mm,
a point oftentimes when that's what happens. Well,
right.
it was traumatic for our whole family because our kids, our younger three, were here. And it happened again with Bonnie, our 28-year-old mare, on Monday night. And when I
Mm,
saw her go down, I I could you can tell when they're laying down and resting,
mm-hmm.
and when they're uncomfortable. And I thought, "Oh no, here we go again." And so I was frantic to get out to see her and be with her and assess her and listen to her gut and all that. Check her gums, everything. And I just couldn't think where I had the injectable pain medicine. I checked all the places, but I was, a little frantic. So I had Matt immediately called my husband, who was coming home from in town, and asked him if he could get a hold of one of the local people that has horses, and I figured she might have um, some of the medicine. And she was at work, and her husband was out pulling stumps in the field, so couldn't reach them. And of course, an hour or so later, I went back and retraced all my spots, and I found the medicine and went in and went out and gave her an injection and all that. Um, but she was up and down basically for 24 hours, and I kept thinking, well, maybe she started to drink a little, she ate a little bit of hay. I thought maybe she's going to be okay. But came home the next night from work, and she was up, she was walking, but you could see she was still hurting, and gave her another injection, and about a few hours later she passed. And
Mm,
it's just been hard, just I've always been a person since I was a young kid that my animals were my refuge, my friends, even. And I think anybody that's an empath or an intuitive can understand that. And where, growing up with the adverse childhood experiences that we had, teaches you to not trust people,
mm,
you know, because the people closest to you hurt you the greatest,
yeah.
tremendously. And so just, intellectually understand all of this from all the work that we've done, I've done, you've done, we've done together, to heal, to recover, to try to learn how to thrive. It still just brought her death again for me, brought up how alone I feel often. I can be in a room full of people I work with and feel, you know, even though I care about them deeply, or my patients, or
Mm-hmm.
um, I feel like my heart is miles away from them. I mean, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even socially, people that we have socialized with through the years that I have felt the closest to, the closest that I am capable of feeling to people. I love them dearly and cherish them and value them so greatly. And yet it's so difficult for me to let them get close to me emotionally. Um, but I'm able to do that with my animals.
Yeah.
And so it hits me incredibly hard. And of course, all those emotions of could I have done more? What, could I have picked up on this earlier, sooner? What was different this year from the last 12 years on this pasture?
Right.
I mean, we've maintained the pastures. We, bulldoze off the junk and, and try to make sure the pasture is nothing but good grass for the horses. It's just been all of that, all of brings up all of those old, I think those old life lessons that we all are working on to varying degrees of, I'm not good enough, I'm not, you know um I'm not competent. Why did this happen to two of my horses? I was prepared, I had the injectable medicine, but nothing. I did tried to get mineral oil and tried to do all the stuff that you're supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
But and then the other part of me realizes, that's the emotional beating myself up side. But then there's the intellectual side, and it's like that I believe we all come into this world, and there's a time for us to leave.
Yeah.
But it's still hard to accept that time when it comes.
Yeah.
Whether it's loved ones, whether it's your beloved animals. Um, and you still feel very alone when that happens. Um, it's not something that I have anyone here that I can go cry with. I'm not, I cry alone. I've always been that way though.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go alone to cry. And
Me too.
it's hard. Matt and I had a wonderful wonderful visit with his family. But it was also difficult at times watching the inner dynamics of who's going to get vaccinated, who's not going to get vaccinated, who, why, and I mean, his mother miraculously survived COVID at 92. It's like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
a few months ago, and just seeing the tension amongst some of the siblings and the and the judgment, and we're all human. We're all struggling, with varying life lessons
Yeah.
and things that we're working on, and I was trying to navigate that and be present for each person as they were saying what they thought, felt, and it was difficult. It was emotionally draining for me at times because I wanted to share what I've read. I'm a provider,
Right.
and nobody
Right.
wants to hear what I have to say. It's just funny. I mean, I found it at times irritating and hysterically ridiculous. It's like,
Right.
wow.
Right.
I in so I keep listening to Glennon. I love Glennon Doyle and her wife Abby, and
Mm-hmm.
just I've read her book Untamed. I think we've mentioned that in a previous podcast, but
Right.
um, I just keep thinking, I keep thinking what Glennon Doyle says: we can do hard things,
Yes.
and that's one of the mantras that I keep telling myself. I can do hard things, I can weather this life experience, and um, yeah, and so there's just been so much emotionally being called up for me. My husband Matt is just a wonderful guy, and but he's loved the experiences we've had on this farm with our children and our granddaughter Jo when she was born, and lived with us here with her mama, and um, and it's hard to talk about possibly leaving it. The winters are hard. They're hard, and the winters are hard on the horses.
Right.
And we want our horses, they're part of our family, right? So we want them to be as comfortable as possible. And he's talking about retiring back to the South and
Hmm.
being closer to family. Our younger two are planning to move to Georgia, and so in the next year. So we want to be in a place where we're as close to our children as we can be.
Right.
That's
Right.
it, it's really been a great gift having a close family where our grown kids still want to hang out with mom and dad.
Right. Right.
And I think we never laugh more than when we're together telling stories or jokes or just cracking each other up. So there's been a lot of reevaluating. Why am I here right now? Why did I come here? And and what's my purpose? Where am I supposed to be? So there's been an awful lot of that on top of, and then Bonnie dying. I'm just
Yeah.
not sure why that had to, you know. So yeah, it's been hard. On top of wanting to work on our book, throw another thing in there.
Right.
I just have felt like um, a lot of energy moving. A whole lot of energy moving. Um, yeah. So
Well, maybe part of the why did that have to happen is that, right? More layers of healing, more raising questions that maybe, it's time to start looking for those answers.
mm,
I have to say that your feeling of being alone, I really resonate with. And I've sort of struggled over the years, like, what's what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong with me? Because I feel like, and I've said this to you before, that I feel like there's this little pod in my life, and it's my husband and daughter, and now her husband and our grandson, who, my God, she chose so well. I'm grateful every day for that boy.
yes, we
Uh,
are
he's so
too.
good. Um, but and you and your family, and I can really count on one hand the number of people I know that I can really be who I am with and talk about things I would talk about in this podcast, right? I mean, really,
Right.
who is Ronnie? And
Yeah.
I know that there are times. I haven't talked about this very much, but there have been times where I remember this more as a kid, like with mom or dad. But there are times when I know that I'm holding somebody at arm's length, at
Yeah.
least energetically, Like I can remember times growing up when dad would come and give me just a big hug. He'd just kind of wrap his arms around me and give me a big hug. And I just felt like this is too much. I'm getting really
Yeah.
emotional thinking about it. Like this is like I wanted to just stiff arm him, and it wasn't like he had done anything bad in that moment. He was actually trying to express genuine affection for me, I think. That's the way I interpret it, but I'm I'm really feeling it. It's just like it was overwhelming. Um, and I've just I have felt that sense of aloneness. Like I can throw a party. We used to do a party every year in November. We called it the Beaujolais Nouveau Party. Before we sold the house we've lived in the last 20 years, where the day the Beaujolais Nouveau comes out in France, the third Thursday of November, it's cheap wine, right? It's meant to be drunk right away. It's very cheap, and we'd buy enough wine for 30, 40 people, and they would all bring snacks, and they would all be in my house. And I would be, they would tell me, "Oh, you're such a great hostess. You're such a perfect hostess. We look forward to this party all year." And I would just be walking around filling glasses and feel like I wasn't, it's almost like I wasn't even there, or I didn't even have to be there.
Yeah.
Um, and I've struggled with that. Like, does that mean there's something wrong with me that I can't really connect? Does it say something about my capacity to love, you know. And
Yeah.
I don't know if that is just if that's a maybe that is an outcome of how we grew up. Maybe that is a dynamic that's sometimes created for people.
Yeah. I believe it is. I because I know you have a tremendous capacity to love because I've been on the receiving end of that. And your love and your support has been one of the greatest gifts in my life. I
I feel the same way about
would
you.
not be here without you. I know that.
Yeah.
And I do believe that it's it's part of our conditioning, you know. Um, and yeah, and it's it's we going back to living where I am now. I just I have absolutely loved and cherished this farm and this place and Lake Superior and the beauty of this world. Um, but I've also we as a family we've been very alone. Um, and not from lack of effort. There's we put
Right.
some effort forward, to make connections socially, but
Right.
it's nothing. It just hasn't been. Um, we're not with our people, I guess. Our, we're just as a family. I think we're just different. Um, we always joke about that line from Sense and Sensibility, Emma Thompson's version,
Yes.
where Willoughby says, "Oh yes, Colonel Brandon, whom everyone speaks well of, but no one remembers to talk to." You know, that's like that's been our family living here. I
Right.
mean, people will say nice things about our family, but they don't talk to us. They don't want it to have us over for coffee, or I mean,
Yeah.
we've reached out to different people at different times and invited them over for supper or for a bonfire, or just try to connect, and it just doesn't continue. It nothing blooms from those efforts. So um yeah, so I totally get my husband. Every time we go back to visit our friends in Nashville, it's like we've never left. And we have a small circle of folks that you've met there.
Yeah.
My choir family, I refer to them as my choir family. I just love each and every one of them. They really feel like brothers and sisters to me, really, or cousins.
Yeah.
And when we get together, it's always such a joyful thing, and tears flow, and there's no judgment.
Right.
um, and it's just a very uplifting um, experience to be with these beautiful people, these beautiful souls. So I get why my husband is so. He's like, when we retire, I want to move back, and I'm like, yeah, I miss all of them too.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel alone all the time, and yeah, and so um, that's what we've been sitting with this week, sorting through all those feelings, and yeah,
Obviously, we need to have this conversation because, as I was, I wouldn't say I feel alone all the time. I do have friends here that I can reach out to, although, the pandemic has kind of changed the dynamic for everyone. We're all sort of
yeah,
more alone than we used to be.
sure,
Mostly, I read an article not too long ago said that the surmising that maybe one of the reasons we don't reach out and text or talk or whatever to people as much is because we feel like we have nothing to say. Like this
yeah,
month was like last month, like the month before, like,
sure,
we're all just kind of marking time until we can get back to whatever normal is. But having this conversation with you um, just called up in me some emotions that I wasn't really aware were there. I mean, I sort of, I was aware that um, aware of the times that I feel alone, even in a crowd like you're talking about. Like they're, like I do have some friends, but I also have socialized in a number of circles where I just felt like I'm not really part of that circle. You know, I'm
Yeah.
there, I'm physically there, but I'm not emotionally connected to the people in the same way that they seem to be connected to each other.
Yeah.
And I, you know, I've times thought about what's wrong with me, that that's the case. Maybe I just don't have as much need for that connection as other people. You know, but I didn't realize the emotion attached to it. Like it was, as I was talking, it was right here, and like I felt like I might burst into tears any second. Um,
Yeah.
that's something I need to sit with too, and kind of think about, see what comes up.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny because I've always, for quite a while, I've called myself a hermit because I really enjoy time alone. I
Yeah.
really enjoy
Yep.
downtime.
Me
And
too.
I think part of that is probably, has developed from giving so much at work. I feel completely drained, some days more than others, at the
Yeah.
end of my workday. You know, and and that's because people come in with problems all day long. Most patients are unhappy to varying degrees when they come in, or and it's
Yeah.
nice when there's a patient that says, I just need my med refills and everything's great, and that's wonderful. But that's not the case most of the time. So so it's I need more downtime. I need more time outside in nature. I need more time with my animals just to decompress. And so I'm not sad about being alone,
Right. Right.
most of the time.
Right.
But it's those times when I could really use some support myself. And I would say in general, I'm a pretty self-reliant person,
Hmm.
out of conditioning or necessity. I don't know.
Right.
But
Right.
but but there are times when I really could use someone to um, just talk things through with, a friend. And so I have my husband and you. you know and that's wonderful, and I'm grateful, very, very grateful.
Right.
But those are the moments when I it would have been nice to have somebody locally or close that I could say, can we get a cup of coffee? I could just use somebody to hang out with for a little bit.
Right.
um and those are the moments when it feels so. This week has been one of those kind of weeks where
Yeah.
it would be nice to just get a friend's perspective, or just share some of this with. And that's those are the moments, yeah, that you realize, maybe this is just part of me, um walling off that heart
Yeah.
and keeping people at a distance emotionally.
Right.
So
Because
yeah,
it's
so it's
it's when you grow up with love and abuse all tangled up together, right? There's pain associated with love. It's
yeah,
probably not uncommon, right? Full disclosure, not a mental health professional, but
no,
probably not uncommon for people to go, okay, I'm not going to let just everybody in, and
yeah,
do what you need to do to feel safe. And so it can take some time to unpack that. You might just think of yourself as a loner, or the kind of person.
hmm,
I've always said I'm the kind of person who has a handful of close friends, and that's it, right?
yeah,
Maybe some acquaintances outside that, usually, but mostly just a few people close, and that's because I'm a little more guarded, right? Somebody used that word once. I went to have a reading. Remember, we went to actually did a reading
yes,
together, and the psychic said, "You're hard to read. You're very guarded."
yeah,
And it's like, oh, that's a good word. And then somebody else, a colleague, said that to me once, who is actually a mental health professional. I have a colleague who's a mental health professional, a dear
yeah,
friend.
yeah,
She said, "Yeah, I read you as guarded sometimes."
yes,
Like, yeah, that's very true.
yeah,
And so I think that if, because part of what you said at the very beginning was, What's wrong with me that I'm feeling this way? What's wrong with me that this is happening? And I think we didn't really know why we wanted to have this conversation today. I just felt like it was important to talk about it because we were talking before we hit record, and I said maybe we should just scrap the plan and talk about where you are. And I think I know why we need to talk about this, because the message is there's nothing wrong with you.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you. This is, the fallout from growing up the way we did, it's lifelong, and it's going to show up in different ways at different times. And our knee jerk reaction is to say, what's wrong with us?
Right.
Or, as our dad used to ask, what the hell's the matter with you?
Right.
There's nothing wrong with us. We're just we're just trying to figure it out, We
Yeah.
came up with some ways of being in the world that maybe made us safer at the time. And now it's kind of that lifelong journey of unpacking it.
Yeah.
And it's not that, as we've said many times, we are living wonderful lives where we have people we love, we have joyful interactions with them, good times, but things come back to nip at us every once in a while, right? It's like this little terrier at your heels. Like, oh, remember this? Right? Remember this? It keeps unfolding in new ways, and we just have to meet it with compassion for ourselves when it does, as
Right.
opposed to self blame. I love you.
I love you too. So very much. So that's where we are today.
Yes, that's where we are.
Each day gets better and better.
Absolutely, absolutely. So
Mm.
next week, unless something else happens, we'll come back to talking about somebody that has had an impact on us. And actually, we snuck in a little Glennon Doyle today.
Oh, we did.
It
We
was just
love you, Glennon
delightful.
Doyle.
It's
We
just
love you,
delightful.
Abby.
But
They're awesome, awesome people. If you haven't read her book Untamed,
yeah,
or oh my God, she's
yeah. And
just
in fact,
amazing.
she's just released information this week saying she's starting her own podcast called "We Can Do Hard Things."
Oh, I'm so excited
So
about
yeah,
that.
it's supposed to drop.
Yeah.
It'll be out by the time this airs. This podcast
Yeah.
airs, so you can look for it. But yeah. So until next time, we are wishing you all so much love, so much light.
And so many, many blessings.
Be well, all.